Hello everyone, welcome to the episode 12 of SoLeadSaturday. The guest we have today, Jennifer, she is a proud single mom of 23-year-old who wants to be a teacher. She is worked in the finance industry quite a long time now, and her core expertise include marketing analytics, risk and operations. And now she's in a journey of a data scientist who is specializing in the analytics field. So let's hear her career journey. How did she manage to follow the continuous learning path and manage to be one of the leaders in the area she is passionate about? So welcome, Jennifer, and
Thank you.
happy to have you on the Solid Saturday episode podcast. Actually, um, I remember that we met in the Data Science Go first time, and it's like you form the instant connections. Actually, find the like-minded people around, and it was so much fun during that time. So
Yes, it
thank you
was. It
so
was a
much.
lot of fun.
Yeah. So thank you so much for being my guest.
Sure.
And to start with, we will first hear about your career journey. So, what do you do now, and how you transform to be, how are you learning towards the data science field now? Like, how are you building your career?
Okay. Well, I have been working in predominantly auto finance for the last 13 or so years.
Mm-hmm.
And prior to becoming an analyst in the auto finance space, I was actually in various sales and marketing roles in the telecom and technology space. So altogether, my career spans about 25 plus years.
Mm-hmm.
Working for a lot of larger companies as well as mid-sized and small companies. Uh, Currently, I work for a company that is a very small subprime auto finance company, and during this time, I've specialized in marketing analytics. That's really kind of my wheelhouse. But I've also worn other hats because of the nature of the type of industry that we're in, being subprime. I'm also expected to, be comfortable talking about the risk side of the business, understanding risk analytics, collections, servicing. We work with dealers throughout the country that are trying to provide auto loans to people that have lower FICO scores. So if you have a 640 or less FICO score, then you would fall within our target demographic. We don't work directly with the end user or the borrower in this case because of licensing constraints. We can only work with the dealer. But so my primary responsibility is around helping our sales team understand who our dealers are. Where are the pockets of opportunity? How are they performing on a day-to-day, week-to-week, and month-to-month basis? I also assist our executive team with any special projects that they have or that they need analytics on. So it could range from, trying to help them get ready for their next board meeting and trying to understand, how we're doing from a larger performance perspective at the company to, like I said, kind of reporting on how we've done in terms of sales. So it kind of runs the gamut. I wear a variety of hats. I'm also our company's Salesforce administrator. So I have built out several reports and dashboards within Salesforce. On a day-to-day or week-to-week basis, I'm also running, any of our marketing campaigns in market, as well as social media. So, whatever is needed in that regard, I'm also doing that. And then, of course, I'm responsible for the analytics on the backside to make sure that we're, monitoring how that's contributing to any lift that we're seeing in terms of applications and loan, applications, that sort of thing.
Yeah. So the way you are talking, or the way you are explaining that you are like, part of everything, like all the phases around it. So when did you realize your passion towards it, actually, that you are interested in this area?
That's a great question. So I kind of fell into this opportunity, fell into data analytics per se. Like I said, I'd been working in sales and marketing for 15 or so years prior to that. I always kind of had a math and analytical acumen. I was always sort of the geek in high school. I was, I was taking classes to eventually be a doctor. I wanted to be pre-med. I wanted to go into genetics. I was just really fascinated by science.
Mm-hmm.
But through some different twists and turns in my early, college time
Mm-hmm.
or whatever, I just discovered that, I was really better when I was happier when I was actually in situations where I could work with folks in the business arena. So not just being on the science and math side of it, but actually working within the business. My father was a C-level executive in the aerospace industry, and so
Mm-hmm.
I kind of learned a lot from him just on the side, and how you should conduct yourself, what's important about doing business with people,
Mm-hmm.
how should you look at problem solving. He was always helping me with problems I might have had in physics or analytics in school or what have you. So it just kind of progressed from there, right? So yeah, I ended up in sales because I guess because of that that personality aspect, and that's just sort of a part of my personality, getting, working well with people. And because I had the background in, math and understanding science, I guess that's sort of how I got into the technology industry. I was given an opportunity to work as a intern
Mm-hmm.
straight out of Texas Women's University, where I got my bachelor's degree, and went to work for Northern Telecom. They became Nortel later. They're no longer around. I went through that whole, 15 years of working with different companies. And then we had the dot-com bubble bust, if you will, right? So a lot of companies, went by the wayside. We had, a lot of startups, and I worked for some dot-coms. And long story short, I ended up going through some layoffs and just decided, hey, I've got to go back and get my MBA. I've got to do something to keep myself marketable. I didn't know that, I guess you could say, I didn't think that sales was really going to be a long-term
Mm-hmm.
road for me, because even though I did well, I was kind of getting tired of the whole quota each month
Mm-hmm.
thing. And so I got my MBA, and fast forward to sort of where I am today. I was given the opportunity to join a company called, at the time they were called Drive Financial.
Mm-hmm.
They ended up becoming Santander. They were bought by a bank in Spain.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, I joined. I was just called by a recruiter. I was contacted by a recruiter, and
Mm-hmm.
she said, "Hey, I've got this opportunity. I see that early in your career you've done some sales, but my very first job as an intern back in, gosh, I'm really going to date myself, in
Mm-hmm.
1991 or thereabouts, was, like I said, working for Nortel, and I was a marketing analyst.
Mm-hmm.
That was my very first marketing job, but it was an analyst role. So I guess she sort of went way back in my past and sort of, saw that I also got my MBA. And so long story short, that's how I ended up, becoming
Mm-hmm.
an analyst. It was just really by sheer, timing and opportunity, and, being able to be given the chance to learn on the job.
Mm-hmm.
I told them in the interview, I said, hey, I've taken a couple of programming classes in college, but
Mm-hmm.
I have, I really don't have any recent background or experience in analytics. So, if you're willing to train me, I'm willing to work hard. And so I remember getting pulled into a room to learn SQL. I had somebody just sit with me and walk me through all the basic syntax, and so that was my beginning of my time as an analyst.
Yeah, so you grabbed the right opportunity actually. So
Yes,
you made like that opportunity fruitful for your career.
yes,
So that is very I feel like useful for youngsters to learn about. Whenever there is an opportunity, there is always a chance to grow and build your career further.
certainly.
So yeah, and you already mentioned that how, like, what major steps you followed to pursue that passion. So moving to the next question, when I saw your profile, actually, you have like tons of certifications on your profile. So like it is Tableau, machine learning, business analysis, and in introduction itself, you mentioned that you are a part of all the phases involved into the delivery. So why do you think that those certifications are important?
That's a really good question, because I think there's probably differing schools of thought these days on whether or not certificates hold any weight. Whether or not you should even mention them on your resume. For me, I just felt like it was important to take stock of where I was at in my career. So back around 2015 or so,
Mhm.
uh, I just reached a point in my career where, I had to ask myself some questions. What is it? I think this is important for everybody to do every so often in your career. Look at where you are and kind of ask yourself, where do I want to be? Right. So
Mhm.
what does the future look like for me?
Mhm.
Am I really happy at what I'm doing? Just taking stock, taking that moment to just kind of reflect. So
Mhm.
when I did that, I looked at analytics, and I
Mhm.
looked at the industry broadly as in terms of where data is at, how
Mhm.
important it is. Because I also have the marketing side or the marketing background, I also had to take stock of sort of where marketing is and how important
Mhm.
it is to the business. So anyway, I basically just decided, here are some potential gaps
Mhm.
I have in my skills, right? So, or maybe maybe there were just,
Mhm.
some skills that I thought I needed to improve if I wanted to continue to stay marketable and just continue to contribute high value to my employer.
Mhm.
So it was about that time that I just sort of outlined for myself, what are the key skills in marketing, what are the key skills in analytics. In marketing, it was all about digital marketing,
Mhm.
uh, SEO,
Mhm.
being able to do web analytics, digital marketing, like I said. And then on the analytics side, that was when I first kind of started hearing, data science was the buzzword. Everybody was talking about data science.
Mhm.
And then I think it was around about 2016, I got called by a company to interview. I won't say who it was, but it was a major airline. And it was for a senior marketing data scientist
Mhm.
position. And I thought, wow, this sounds really, really cool. I've been hearing about data science. Wow, I should check into this and kind of see, this is intriguing. So I went to the interview. Was a great first interview, but I remember one of the people in the interview that I would have been working with said, "Hey, do you know how to use Alteryx?
Mhm.
Do you know?" He just sort of named off a list of these different platforms and tools, and I thought, no, I haven't used those, but I the salesperson in me kicked in and said, "Hey, but I can learn these things. I can start taking courses." And so anyway, that job ended up being put on hold. The company went through some changes, and they ended up not deciding not to hire that
Mhm.
role. But it was a really big wake up call for me, because
Mhm.
I'd already been making these lists. I'd already been sort of outlining where I
Mhm.
wanted to be and what I needed to start thinking about in terms of you know courses. But that interview just kind of put a nail in the ground, or a stake in the ground, and told, it really made me decide, hey, I need to start getting serious about the analytics side of my career as well. So I started listening to Super Data Science. I found the Machine Learning Guide taught by Tyler Ranelli, another great podcast. I just started taking courses through it, whatever I could find. Coursera. I think I started on Coursera.
Mhm.
Anyway, going back, sort of coming full circle back to your
Mhm.
question, I think certificates are important because, number one, I think they're quick and easy to take, right? So
Mhm.
things are always changing so fast in our industry. It's super important to constantly be honing your skills. The second thing is that I think it can be more affordable for people, right? So sometimes you don't have the money or the time to go back and get a degree, but a lot of times we can carve out time to work on a certificate, right? Whether it's on the weekend or in the evenings. And so I just think the bottom line is, I think it's important to keep your skills up.
Mhm.
um, there is so competitive now
Mhm.
to uh, find a job and
Mhm.
to be able to even just providing value to your employer. I think it's so important to
Mhm.
take initiative in your organization and say, hey, I've been taking this course, or I've been learning about X, and I think I can help you do Y, right?
Mhm.
But you've got to take that initiative. And so I think it's a way of showing people, it's a way of showing your employer, it's a way of showing potential employers
Mhm.
that you have that initiative. You
Yeah.
care about the future of the company, you care about your own skills, and that you're willing to put in the work to do it.
Yeah. So this is very
Long
insightful.
answer to a short question.
No, no, this is definitely very insightful actually, because whenever you are looking for any kind of a, career change or the technology, always it is you being the proactive and showing that courage to get into that field actually.
Yeah.
So continuous learning is something you always find out that, do the gap analysis, where you lie, and then, current market analysis, where is the market going, and the job market specifically, if you are looking to jump into that area. So
Yeah.
this is very, very useful. So thank you for sharing.
Sure.
Moving to the next question, I see your daily hashtag daily coding posts actually, which is the initiative started by Kate.
Hmm.
But it is like, I love the consistency and you are doing it every single day. So that is something I'm also planning to do, but I'm still did not start it because I did not commit it unless until I will be that consistent, like,
Hmm.
doing it. But whenever I see your post is like so encouraging, and when we talk about your profile, you are like worked, like your core expect, like, expertise in the operations risk and marketing analytics. When it comes to coding, like how challenging it is to keep up to, new skills, like, and how do you manage that?
Well, again, I'll give credit to Kate for, the daily coding challenge. You're right. I mean, I think it's so important to, particularly when you're learning to code or when you're just continuing to keep your skills up, that
Mm-hmm.
you, that you code every day,
Yeah.
right? Even if it's just for 10 minutes, that you do something every day to continue, because that muscle memory is so important.
Mm-hmm.
So, I was really excited when she came up with this challenge, because I was getting to a point where, I knew I knew I wanted to continue learning different coding languages. I had just finished up, the first part of learning R, right? So it was Matt Dancho's Jumpstart with R course, and I had just started taking his 101 course, and I knew that I needed something to kind of light a fire under me to keep doing this every single day, because I get busy. We all do. I'm a single parent, and so it's just a lot of challenge trying to keep up with everything. So anyway, I just think it was great that the timing of the challenge was perfect, because I do I'm a very goal oriented individual. And so most of the time I'm very self driven.
Mm-hmm.
But I've realized as I've gotten older that it just helps to have other people, to surround yourself with other people that are like-minded and believe in that same sort of ambition, and
Mm-hmm.
to help push you and push each other.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I mean, I don't know if that answers your question, but I mean, I definitely, it is challenging, Leisha. It is challenging. In fact, Kate and I have talked about this offline. Um, you know, I think I started it, like I said, thinking, okay, this will be a great way for me to just keep up my skills and sort of inside, incent me to code every day. But then I started to feel, because I have so many people that kind of follow me, I
Mm-hmm.
started thinking I better use this. I'd like to use this as a teaching opportunity
Mm-hmm.
too.
Yep,
And I
yep, yep.
realized that it's easier for you to learn and assimilate information if you're also sharing and training others on that same material. And I enjoy helping other people. It's just in my DNA. And it's just, I probably should have been a teacher, or maybe I wasn't a former life. I don't know. But so it's just, that's how I keep myself
Yes.
motivated.
Yeah,
Um,
it's definitely, I can agree on that point that, teaching
yeah,
is the best way of learning as well.
yeah,
People don't understand it actually because they keep enhancing the skill set if they are teaching as well, because people will come up with the questions and then you explore some of the areas you might missed out while learning by yourself.
yeah.
So yeah, that is the best way of learning anything. So thank you so much, and
You're
I'm
welcome.
like looking forward to it, your challenge actually 365 days. And Kate mentioned me that she's not planning only 365 days, and I'm sure you are going to be the one who is doing it like consistently. So yeah, all the good luck with that actually.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
And then moving back to your core expertise, actually marketing analytics. So would you like to provide some insights to the audience, like, how does it work, and if, like, what goes under the marketing analytics when we talk about that?
Sure. So marketing analytics is really focused on, what are the different tactics that you're using to reach your customers and, increase sales or increase market share. What are the drivers of, revenue in your business, right? So whether it's in our case, applications coming in for loans. It's how do you measure, um,
Mm-hmm.
how do you measure whether these tactics are working for you?
Mm-hmm.
So in marketing, we refer a lot of times to the marketing mix. That's pricing, promotion, place. It's the four areas that drive, your product mix or your marketing mix. So, and there's also all of these different tactics. Like I said, there's,
Mm-hmm.
my gosh, now we've got offline tactics, we've got online tools, we've got digital marketing, we've got offline brick and mortar marketing, you've got direct mail, email,
Mm-hmm.
social media. So we refer to all of these different pieces and sort of how we measure or kind of the different touch points that go into reaching our customer as attribution, right? So we have to figure out how do we attribute each of these tactics. How do we attribute that to the person who ultimately buys our product or service? Was it purely web influence, or was it early on in the sale, was it our salesperson calling on that person, right? Was it a relationship play? So marketing analytics is all about identifying all of those different touch points,
Mm-hmm.
understanding all of the tactics that are in market for the company,
Mm-hmm.
and then understanding, how sales may look before you launch that program or that promotion
Mm-hmm.
versus afterwards. So there's a lot of just sort of comparison of the timing of what revenue was like at a certain time period relative to when you actually launched this particular program. So
Mm-hmm.
you spend a lot of time measuring and just kind of managing these different campaigns and market. The other piece of it is understanding your customer from a target demographic perspective. So for example, we are a subprime auto finance company that I work for. And so I have to understand, what are the different types of
Mm-hmm.
dealers that we work with. We have some dealers that are going to be in markets that have a lower subprime customer. We may have dealers that sell what we call highline cars, so your Land Rovers, your Jaguars, that sort of thing. So it's understanding, what type, what states are they in, what types of vehicles are they selling, what are their triggers? Do they like, or are they influenced more by the relationship with the rep, or are they influenced more by, the pricing? So it's understanding your target as well as the tactics that go into selling your product. So that's kind of a broad overview, but of course there are other things that I do on a day-to-day basis because we are a finance company. We're also looking at just in general, what do those applications look like when they're coming in the door? And so there's a lot of things that just are specific to our business that you also need to understand. But I manage all of our email campaigns. I make sure I measure, how I'm looking at Google Analytics, and I'm trying to understand, did this dealer visit our website because they received our email campaign? So I'm always trying to tie back, the digital side of the business or the digital tactics to the offline tactics, how our sales reps are doing versus how these other promotions are working.
Yeah. So this led to the second question, like you worked in the finance industry such a long time now. So when we talk about the data, how do you see this field evolving like around the finance domain? Like what are the differences you can see now and then?
Between now and how maybe it
How
was
it was
several years
before
ago?
and now, is it getting structured? It is getting worse? It is still in the boom,
Um,
like that kind of.
I still think there are a lot of, and particularly in our maybe it's just the finance industry or maybe it's other companies, but I still see a lot of challenge around data governance.
Mm-hmm.
So just understand, like even just something as simple as a data dictionary. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I think there's a lot of focus on getting the data via ETL, getting it into the server, and making sure the data is available to the users, and making sure the jobs are run on time to create our reports, et cetera, et cetera. But in most of the companies I've worked for, there's also been sort of a deficiency, if you will, on the governance side. So now we have to be very careful because we're in the finance realm. We have to be very careful about compliance. So we're doing things a lot of times on the compliance side that help sort of hedge that or help sort of monitor that risk. But
Mm-hmm.
just from a day-to-day kind of as an analyst, it can be challenging sometimes. And I've had this at other companies when you've got to figure out, where is the data?
Mm,
How do I get to the right data that I need? That's the first, besides understanding the business question and the problem, right?
mm,
Your next question is, what data do I need and how do I get to it?
mm,
I found a lot of situations, especially on the marketing side,
mhm,
because we're more concerned with, I guess you could say, risk as an
mhm,
auto finance provider. As a marketing person, I've had to get very creative
mhm.
and sort of bring in my own data
Yeah.
sometimes.
Mhm,
So I would say that's, as a marketing analyst, I would say that's one of the biggest challenges for me, is just, and for the finance companies I've worked with, is just, being able to satisfy all the stakeholders across the business, being able to anticipate their data needs. And then in some cases, particularly more recently, knowing that there may be times where you have to bring in data from somewhere else. It's not necessarily going to be residing in your server. Being
mhm,
able to know as an analyst that that is something you may have to do on your own. And
mhm,
again, it goes back to that initiative and just, understanding your domain of the business, your part of the business, and
mhm.
how some additional external data may help you make a decision.
Yeah. So thank you for sharing. Actually, that was
Sure.
insightful. And moving to the data scientist role, that now your tagline says that you data scientist who is specializing in the analytics. So why do you think that analytics is important when it comes to data scientist job role? Like,
Well, there are different areas or subdomains within data science, right? So it's not that I think analytics is more important than other areas. I happen to specialize in analytics because it's something I've been doing for a while.
mhm,
But I also think it's important for you to be familiar with other areas of data science, because we talk a lot about that life cycle, right? From the problem to
mhm,
being able to deploy models, right? Being able to get the information into the hands of your end users or
mhm,
whoever it is that's whether it's an executive or what have you. So I think it's important to understand analytics and what role it plays in that
mhm,
continuum. And it's an area that I happen to enjoy very much because I'm analytical in nature,
mhm,
right? I'm a natural. I find myself fascinated with problems. When
mhm,
I look at something, I'm looking at it constantly through
mhm,
that analytic lens. So for me, it's important because I realize that when you're trying to solve a problem, a lot of times it comes down to how you're interpreting that data, right? But I do think it's also important, if you're going to be working in any area of data science, that you understand that workflow. You understand,
mhm,
the data engineering aspect, the data visualization piece, the analytics side, as well as, what it takes to, get to full deployment or production on
mhm.
something. And that a lot of times that it requires, being able to work cross-functionally, like I said, being able to get along with IT,
Yeah.
understanding their challenges, being able to talk with your stakeholders, whether it's your C-level executives or maybe it's your salespeople.
Mhm,
Analytics is important because you need to be able to understand each of these different aspects of the business,
mhm,
right? Not just looking at the data from a data science perspective.
mhm, mhm, mhm. Yeah, so that is definitely, I feel that, along with when we talk a lot more about these programming languages or the technologies used in this field right now, problem solving and the analytical skills, actually, those are the soft skills which are like there always, like, even though there is a change in technology, you always need that skill set, like as on your resume, like, you should have that. So it is easy to migrate from one technology to other as well if you have that skill. So thank you for sharing. Moving to the next question is about, now you use lots of tools and the programming language as well. I see you are learning SQL, R. So like, what do you prefer? Like, which is there any preferable tool, or like, any preferable language that you choose?
Well,
Or open for any language?
yeah. Well, SQL, I've been using SQL for about 13 years. Like I said, that was the first, language I really, or the first programming or platform I learned when I became an analyst. And I look at SQL as kind of the workhorse
Mm-hmm.
of, the analytics lifecycle or the data, lifecycle. It's so important to have, like I said, an understanding of where your data is and being able to pull that data. So I
Mm-hmm.
look at SQL as, it's the bread and butter kind of what I do on a daily basis. So I heavily rely on SQL.
Yeah.
I've also used SAS a little bit. I think it's important, to understand some of these proprietary, types of software, whether it be SQL or SAS.
Mhm.
But I think open source is definitely here to stay. I mean, I think languages like Python are, I think a lot of people are even talking about Julia. I heard about Julia a few years ago.
DevOps. Yeah, I used it actually.
Yeah, I don't think that you can put a limit on
Mhm.
knowledge. I don't think you can say, well,
Yeah.
this is better than the other. I like to use the analogy of, sometimes I'm not a big DIYer. I don't like to, I'm not that great at fixing things that if it were like putting together, I don't know, a shelf for my daughter's room or building,
Mm.
putting together a bike for Christmas or whatever. I'm not that great at putting together things
Mhm.
on that. But I like to use the analogy of a flathead screwdriver versus a Phillips head, right?
Mhm.
Sometimes you're going to need a flathead and sometimes you're going to need a Phillips head.
Mhm.
I have a toolbox, right, to fix things out around the house. Well,
Mhm.
I look at data science and these different tools as, I have a toolbox now that I can refer to, right?
Mhm.
So on any given day at work, a lot of times I would say I'm going to be using SQL, but I may have a project come up that I need to think about, well, gosh, maybe it would be helpful if I use R
Mhm.
to convert the data from, wide format into long
Mhm.
format. And maybe Python can help me create, connect to an API
Mhm.
that will allow me to, bring in some data that will complement this analysis that I can't necessarily do as quickly,
Mhm.
say in R, right? So I think once you get familiar with these different languages, you can start to get a feel for, when you need to apply or use each of them. So do I have a favorite? I think right now, because I've been spending so much time in R, I'm really, really enjoying R.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
It feels a lot like, in terms of the syntax, I guess I kind of caught on to the basics fairly quickly
Mhm.
because it's so much like SQL,
Mhm.
at least to me. And there's just some really, interesting nuances about R that I just really enjoy, like I call it the power of the pipe,
Mhm.
right? Little things about the syntax that I think are really helpful when you're going through your data wrangling, and just some of the basic things that I would typically do in SQL,
Mhm.
now I can do in R.
Okay.
So I guess I kind of lean towards R, but I was looking over some of my old GitHub projects yesterday and some of my old projects from last year, and I was looking at some of my Python stuff, and I'm like, man, I should go back and sort of spend some time, kind of refreshing. I feel like, if you don't do it every day,
Mhm.
it's easy to sort of forget some of those things. So I think it's important to keep your skills up no matter what language you may lean towards.
Yeah. And I feel that if you know one language, it's very easy to switch to the other language
It
actually.
is relatively
Important
easier.
to know
Yeah.
one actually at least. So moving to the next question is about why this podcast stands for, like taking leaderships in the areas you are interested in. So as I see you as a leader actually. So
Thank you.
what is your leadership style and any leader that you follow or always admire?
I see my leadership style as more of a coaching leader mindset. Like I said before, I really enjoy helping people. I enjoy training and teaching other people
Mhm.
things. I found that I have an ability to take technical jargon and make it, easier for people to understand, in a layman sort of way. I'm able to sort of bridge that gap and help communicate things, even from a, say an IT to business perspective. I think that business acumen has really come in handy.
Mhm.
I see myself as a coaching leader. When I've managed other people, I've been able to, um, be able to work with different individuals, regardless of their level of
Mhm.
knowledge, and I'm able to discern those people that need some help in a particular area. I've enjoyed, coaching them offline, to be able to bring their speeds up, or their skill up in a certain, in a certain area, whether it be Excel or, something
Yeah.
as simple as that. But as far as leaders that I follow, I don't really have one particular leader per se that I follow, but I would have to say that, leadership comes in all shapes and sizes. I consider you a leader in the regard that you have developed this Lead Saturday, initiative. You're taking, leadership position in terms of how you are going about your presence on LinkedIn. I think each of us has that ability if we dig down and sort of harvest that energy, right?
Yeah.
But I definitely, I guess I have different types of people that I consider leaders. I'll just, like I said, continue to use LinkedIn as an example. Kate is amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Ben Taylor in the world of AI, I think he and Terry Singh
Mm-hmm.
are just incredible. I think that they care about their followers. They genuinely care
Mm-hmm.
and are extremely knowledgeable in their area or their domain.
Yeah.
From a business perspective, I've seen a lot of really good posts from Jason Krantz. He
Mm-hmm.
went on his own to start Strategy Titan.
Mm-hmm.
And so I really, really kind of admire what he's done. And a lot of his posts resonate with me. I also enjoy, I've seen Dan Show, like I said, build his business.
Mm-hmm.
I really admire leaders who aren't afraid to take risks.
Mm-hmm.
But that also understand along the way that they need other people. You can't do it alone. And if you're going to work with other people or rely on other people, it's extremely important that you understand the value that those people bring to the equation, and that you can communicate effectively, and that you genuinely care, right? There's a reason we call, people within an organization, we call the people that manage them human resources. I think people are resources. They're assets. So I tend to admire leaders who are very humble,
Mm-hmm.
who really care about the individuals that they're leading. There's definitely a difference between a leader and a manager. You
Yeah.
know, politically, I admire. I mean, gosh, I've admired different people in politics and different business
Yeah.
people. So it just depends on what area you're referring to, but definitely on LinkedIn, I've seen a lot of people really blossom in the year or two, that I've been doing some things on LinkedIn. It's been really fun watching everybody grow.
Yeah. And I can relate that actually, whichever name you mentioned, actually, I completely agree with that.
Yeah.
And when we are talking about this helping and caring nature as well, being a leader, actually, I would just remember that incident where, when I started my career in the healthcare as a data scientist and I was looking for the domain knowledge, I remember that I posted it on LinkedIn, and you were the first who just messaged and saying that, hey, hi, I have a book, and then I can just post it to you. Tell me your mailing address and I will give it to you. So that definitely shows that, like, they're always ready to help out people. So thank you so much, actually.
Oh,
uh,
you're
I
welcome.
really appreciate your insights on the leadership style, and those are
Yeah.
really very much like I can relate as well. So moving to the next question is about, we already discussed this, so maybe we can skip that one. But moving to the second question is about any tips or advice that you would like to give to the people who are looking to grow in their career or looking to transform their career into specific field, because you are doing it actually quite well, the way
Well,
you
thank you.
transform your journey in the throughout your job profile, like you are up to date with your current skill set as well, which is like
Thank you.
high profile skill set in the market right now, and you took that challenge as well. So what kind of a tip and advice would you like to give to the people?
I have a lot of people that contact me with these questions. One of the things that I tell them, or I encourage them to do first, is to really ask themselves why they
Mm-hmm.
want to do it. Like I said, I kind of fell into this, and it just was a natural thing for me because I had already kind of considered myself sort of a geek. I loved data. I loved math. I always sort of gravitated towards that. But if you're thinking of, especially if you're thinking of making a change, excuse me, I think it's important to, like I said, put that stake in the ground and be very self-aware and ask yourself, why do I want to do this? Right? Where do I see myself in 2, 3, 5 years? Why is it important to me? Really you hear about Simon Sinek's why. Well, I think each of us needs to be very aware of our why, be very self-aware.
Mm-hmm.
That's the first thing I would say, is that, just ask yourself that question. The
Mm-hmm.
second thing I do, or I encourage, is what I did. take stock. Make a list of, or what are your current skills? Where do you want to be? What does that job entail? Get to know some of the leaders, like I said, thought leaders on LinkedIn that are in that space, whether it's AI, machine learning, data engineering, computer vision. There's different people on LinkedIn that you can point to, right, or contact that have these areas of expertise. Look at their profiles, look at their background, look at their projects, look at their GitHub, understand sort of what you may be in for. And then, make a list of those skills that you need to have, and then do a gap analysis. Do a gap analysis and figure out, what transferable skills do I have that I don't necessarily have to like learn from scratch, but then what are those things I just don't know? Maybe I need to understand the ETL process better. Maybe I need to learn SSIS. Maybe I need to understand data visualization. Look at that continuum, right? If you're interested in data science, machine learning, understanding what is that data science life cycle? What does that look like? What are the different pieces? How does it work together? What skills do I need to learn to get to where I want to be, right? And just be very clear, listing those skills out. And then I would just prioritize, because there's so many courses you can take. Some people still want, some people work better with books. Some people work better with videos. Some people are better self-taught, just pulling up a YouTube video. Some people do better in a face-to-face, going to get a 4-year degree. Maybe you want to get a 4-year degree. Maybe you have that time and that money, and you're very, that's the way you work best. So I would figure out what are the best mediums, right, or the best tools or conduits for you to get to where you need to be to get those skills, accomplished, or feel comfortable with those skills. And then finally, I would just say, start using it as much as possible. Use it every day, whether you want to sign up for the daily coding challenge. You don't really sign up, you just start using the hashtag, but do it every day, to figure out what your passion is, go for it 100%, throw yourself into it, be all in, and like I said, get to know other people in the space and and communicate with them, learn from them, but definitely share what you're learning. Because I've had people contact me and say, gosh, I just don't know how to get into data science, or maybe they just finished school, right? I get a lot of these new graduates that will say, gosh, I'm graduating with my bachelor's from UTD in the fall, or this summer, and I really want to get an internship, or I want to go work for this company. And I say, well, first of all, do you know anybody there? You need to start networking. You need to be talking to these people. And then secondly, I say, hey, make sure that that you're really ready to do the type of work that you want to do. Make sure your projects, your GitHub, whatever you're using to, like I said, keep your skills up, make sure all of that is available, that all of that's ready to go. Start sharing. I tell them, start blogging, share your projects. Don't be afraid, it all starts with that first post, right? So once you get out there, and I've been loving Angela Balti's, I think you say her last name, Baltis. Angela, she's been posting some videos on LinkedIn, and it's awesome. She's just getting on there and talking about her background. So maybe you just start with a video talking about yourself, introducing yourself to the community. But that's the way you get employers to notice you. That's the way you get other people to notice you that you may want to network with. So yeah, I just think it's important to just put yourself out there and start sharing your work and show your passion, definitely.
So yeah, basically it is like being brave and help yourself actually. So definitely you find the approach, what best works for you. So this was really very wise, and I love talking to you and meeting you back again. So thank you so much, and have a great rest of your day. Thank you.
Thank you too, Alicia. Bye-bye.